Hi, today we will be going over a great game between Emanuel Berg, who's white, and Evgeny Bareev, who is black. We start with the French. And here, nowadays, most people will just push a pawn to e5, but Berg goes into the bishop g5 variation. And here, there's several moves that black could do. You have the classical, you have the McCutcheon, or you can take, which is the burn variation. So here, if you take here, this becomes Morozovic, which is pretty much only used by him. Everyone else just takes. And we enter the main tabia for this line, which is opposite side castling. And we got an attack going on the king. Meanwhile, they fianchetto their bishop. And this is the starting position. So here, what would you do as white? How to continue the attack? Well, there are some choice moves such as knight to g5, targeting h7. So just bring more closes in for the attack. We could bring in the rook to the center. We could also get our king to safety, which is, pay attention, this move is going to be seen a lot recommended a lot by the engine because of what happens after. Maybe a noob might even want to keep pushing the pawn. But here, Berg goes for the top choice, which is queen e2. Now, what does this move do? Think about it. There's many actual uses to this move. First, we're eyeing this very useful square on h5, where the queen wants to land to join forces with its friends to attack h7, f7. Also, it clears away on the d file. So potentially, if they push c5, then we can take and then pin this knight later on. So this is also useful. Thirdly, what is it eyeing? Can we spot a potential sacrifice? Yes. Once this knight lands here, potentially, then there's some shenanigans on e6. So it's a very multi-purpose move. This nice queen e2 move. Okay, black says, I don't care. I'm going to push c5 anyway. Why? Because it's obvious you want to attack me and I want to attack you. So let's get it going. We take. Now, what does black do? Black goes queen c7, sidestepping this potential nastiness on the d file. And here, it's funny, the author of the book I read this game on, he says, no sensible white player would take this pawn. Why is that? Why? Someone on my stream asked why. Well, it's because you don't want to do black's job for them. Taking this pawn is akin to helping your enemy gather more brush to surround your own fortress so that they can light you on fire. They want to attack down these files. They want to open up. We want to attack them. We want to spend our moves doing our work, not helping black do their job. So we don't take. Instead, here, we go what? What's like a nice move? Okay, here we go, knight e2, g5. And I asked my stream, why this knight and not this knight? Well, because what do we want to open up? That's right. We want to open up these lines of attack. One on h7 and one for the king, queen, on the e file. So this knight does the job better than this guy. Okay, here black has a choice. Already we're starting to attack. If you are black, how do you start to defend? There are some options, right? If you are black, what would you do? Well, I think it's a sensible move. Maybe just h6. You attack my pawn. I push a pawn out of the way so you can't take it, while I also want to get rid of your annoying knight right here. Although it's clear that you might already be thinking about sacking it. So I have to also calculate that variation. So let's switch back and see what happens if we push h6. Well, first I have to calculate the sacrifice, right? Right? We don't want to go back because we're already here and we might as well sack somebody because we're attacking. So we calculate this. The rook blocks, and now there's a few different options we can calculate. How would you proceed as white? First, the rook is pinned, so let's see if we add pressure to the rook with bishop g6. Can you see how black can defend here? Boom, baby. Queen f4 chuck. This is black's counterplay hidden up its sleeve. Remember a few moves back when the engine suggested king b1? Why is that? Why is that? Because in every single line, since we did not get the king out of danger, we give black the counterplay, the potential ability to check us. So now every single time we have to calculate what if black checks us along this diagonal. So this is a counterplay. This not only forces our king to get out of the way, but also it happens to defend on the critical f7 square. Meaning that now black goes here challenging the queen, and now we trade everybody off, and this is just equal. Our attack is gone, we traded off pieces. This is not very clear. So let's rewind. They pin themselves, bishop g6 did not really work. What if we go the other way with the bishop? How about this? Okay, but again we have to calculate queen f4 check. Again this line, and again they defend. So this does not lead to much. But you can think, okay. What if? And the same idea, we trade everybody off. But what if we block, we intercept with a knight? All right, ready to see some funny ideas? So basically we're both desperadoing our queens. You're attacking me. Excuse me. But do we see not this move? Do we see a nice little intermezzo for black here? Yes. This is a critical difference. Both of our queens are dead meat. We're both being attacked. But before I get taken, I first throw in this little chuck, forcing our king to get out of the way. And the point is, now I take her queen, I get took, but now what can I do? I win in exchange. And this is materially winning for black. So this is why bishop c4 does not work here either. If we just simply deflect the king away, this just leads to about rough equality. If the king takes, and if the king doesn't take, it's actually kind of funny. Do we see a nice finish? This is now actually winning for white. And I want to tell you why. I just want to go through this because it's funny and because we see something similar later on in the game. It's not because we win a queen, because black wins a queen back. But it's because what? Can we see the tactic from here? c6, baby. We lure the bishop. Remember this tactic for 20 moves later. Bishop takes, knight forks, rook defense. We take anyway. The point is what? Do we all see the tactic now? The point is the light squares. Now they're getting skewered. So what tactical vision to be able to foresee this, right? Black thinks it's fine because we win the queen back with this discovery. However, you're not fine because of the follow-up, luring you onto the light squares and skewering you at the end of the line. That's really hot. Okay, so our friend Bareev saw through all of that, which is why he did not play h6. Fun fact, h6 I think is the actual top recommended move. Or at least it's not bad. It's a viable defense. But he didn't like all the things I just showed you. So instead of going h6, he defends with what other move? He goes knight f6. Also makes sense. It brings in a defender closer to the king. Defends h7 like that. Also opens up the queen's protection of the bishop. Also maybe they can defend better. So he decides to go to knight f6. And now if you're white, how do we continue? Yeah, there are a few options, right? If you said king b1, big applause to you because that's one of the top recommended moves. Again, because we want to sidestep the nasty potential counterplay. King b1 is a move. Rook h to e1 still a move. c6, right? Here we already see c6 as a move. They can just take it, but eventually if we win their nice bishop, we get the bishop pair. Or we don't get a bishop pair. We don't have a bishop pair, but at least we get one of their bishops. So those are all viable moves, but the top move, and this is what Berg plays, is knight e5. Bring in another piece, adding pressure, adding pressure to the steam cooker. We're eyeing f7 now twice, and just bring in more pieces closer. Now the tactics are really cute. Okay, now if you're black, what do we play? He plays h6. Now is the time to play h6. This is because bishop takes c5 does not really work. Right? Sometimes as new players, we feel itchy. Like we see a pawn that's not taken on the board. We just want to take it. We're like, let's just get rid of it. Like I feel the itch. Like we just want to get rid of it. But this doesn't really work. And I'll play through this pretty fast because first knight d7. This is winning for white. And there's actually even sexier move. There's a sexier move, which is how about just sack the friggin' piece? Now do we see the tactic or what's happening to black? So now not actually queen h5 chuck because this doesn't work. And I don't want to go down this huge rabbit hole because I have. On stream, I actually analyzed this for 5 hours straight. But I'm trying to give you guys a condensed version. So this doesn't actually work because the king can defend. Once it goes to g8, and you can try to calculate this yourself, it doesn't work. Knight takes, and it doesn't lead to anything because of the critical counterplay move, queen f4 chuck. If you're able to see that, congratulations. And if queen chuck, king gets here, hides here, and we actually come in with, let me think. So this just doesn't work. This doesn't work right now. Wait, not even because of this chuck. Not even because of the chuck. Sorry, because the knight is here. But because we have to bring on this rook first, eyeing this square. But after that, there's this crazy line that it doesn't, h5, queen h5 here does not work. But it doesn't even work later. So this line continues, rook d7, b8. And here you want to give this chuck, but if you do the calculations, it does not work out. And if you take it with a rook, it also does not work out. It does not lead to mate, and you can calculate that. So instead, we have h5, which threatens to push the pawn to h6. And if they go g6, then we're threatening to take on g6 because of the pin. And so that's a really, really nice line. But for time's purposes, we will not go into that in great detail because I really can, let me tell you. So let's go back. Knight e5 is played. They go h6. Now, as white, how do we want to continue this attack? Okay. So again, we see our old friends and f4 now as well. But there's a really sexy move. And there's also just a simple taking the pawn, right? All of these are great moves. The top move is actually to just take on f7. And after this, it's unclear. Black actually has a slight edge, or let me, the author says this is roughly equal, which it is. But if they take with this pawn, I think black actually has a slight edge. But still, they are able to defend everything, and this is just roughly equal. So this is why our friend goes for the flasher tactic, which is not to take on f7, but to go, boom, baby, bishop g6. In the spirit of McKeltell, the great attacker, it's not an attack unless you have 3 pieces hanging at the same time. So here we have 2 pieces hanging, all adding maximum pressure onto f7. Now we can definitely take no problemo. And now this is freaky. This is actually not one of the top recommended moves by the engine, not even in the top 3. However, I would give it 100 points for style and for shock, for psychology, because you're facing a human. You're not facing a computer. And your opponent, when you see something freaky like this, you're like, how the F am I supposed to defend? If anything, it stirs the pot, it adds more mud to the water, and you need to sink more time into calculating more variations. It's just more complicated and interesting. So if you're black, there's a lot to calculate here. What do you take? What can't you take? What do you even do? Like, how do you even defend? We spent a lot of time here. And it's very, very hard because everybody would just assume that you're already lost. However, I'm here to tell you that you're not lost. You have one way out as black. What would you do? The first thing I looked at was taking the knight, which I immediately discounted because I was like, if you take, you open up the H file for us. And with all this pressure, the queen coming in, the knight getting kicked out, we are sure to mate somebody down the H file. So I was like, definitely we cannot take the knight on G5. Second, I calculated taking the bishop. This also looks really bad. Why? Well, I looked at taking this pawn, I looked at taking this pawn, and then I decided to go calculate this line first. So takes here, hitting the queen moves to c8, and then I got stuck on if this knight takes this, but then the rook comes here. So we can actually check out this line. We can actually check this out, okay? we can check out taking the bishop. So I got stuck in my calculation, but the point is not to take here, hitting the rook twice, but just to take the rook. And now you're materially dominating because of this pretty finish, because you come in on this diagonal. So this is where I was like very, very impressed with this line, because we've been scrutinizing the king side the whole time. We've been like laser focused on like the f7 square, yada yada. But here to come in from the other side of the board. And look here, now the king actually defends his pawn, so we don't get a take on g6. But now it's not about g6, it's about whole board vision. We push c6. The c6 is always our friend. c6 is our hidden move up our sleeve. We always have c6, and now with this pawn rolling up the board, their bishop moving, we are actually superior. Much superior here. And this is very, very interesting. Okay, so this bishop takes does not work, which instinctively we feel, but it's kind of tricky to calculate the line. So let's go back. Now it's a test. If we can't take this knight, we can't take this bishop, what other defense does black have? So my stream thought about, okay, what if defend this pawn with bishop c? Oh, I mean, nobody knew what to do. This just looked way too freaky, right? I'm sure none of you guys saw this spectacular move, which is bishop a6. Isn't that nice? When I saw this, I was like, wow, this is creative. This is a creative point, like creative defense, like points for creativity. What does this do? This is a deflection tactic, because like you take, I take, and obviously this is better for us. Or better, it's good for black, because if we take, then like they take our knight, they remove one of our defenders, and maybe just hopefully they can survive. So if we look at this, and if we calculate this out, then this is actually like roughly equal, unclear. However, instead of checking with the bishop, we can instead just keep the tension by sliding it back. Slide back the queen, and now if you take the bishop, boom, I take this guy, hitting your rook, hitting the pawn. You try to defend this pawn. I just take it. I check, I come in, I pin you. And now we apply pressure again on f7. So that's nice. That is a nice line, and that actually refutes the whole bishop a6 idea. As creative and sexy as it is, it doesn't actually work. And that is why I am really, really baffled, because it feels like there is no defense for black. So is it a trick question? Did I trick you guys? Did I force you guys to calculate a dead end here? Maybe it was a trick, because the best move here is the first move that I immediately discounted, which just shows that you have to be really stringent with your calculation. The best move and the only move for black to survive is to actually just take the knight on g5. This feels impossible. Like, I wouldn't even consider it. Because, like, why are you letting me open the file? Like, I am going to come down here and attack your king. However, after I take, what I missed in my calculation is that black does not move the knight. They don't move the knight because then they're toast. Instead, they take our bishop. Once they take our bishop, they are actually defending the square. And what do? Do I take the knight? They're still defending. Like, do I take this pawn? Now it's even more complicated. What do I do from here? How do I continue? All right. Throwing the ball to you again. How would you continue as white? Every single move hurts her brain to calculate. Okay. Let's first look at taking the knight, because that seems like an obvious idea. Remove the defender around the king. But let's say they defend with a rook, which protects a square. After this whole sequence, it's actually unclear. Again, it's unclear. Because, okay, so this is actually a really sexy line. Because here our queen is being attacked, but we let the queen hang. Why? Because what happens if they take our queen? We're threatening Anastasia's mate. I'm just going through this pretty quick because I don't want this video to be like an hour long. Actually, this is my second time recording. The first time was like 50 minutes. So here they have to go rook f6, which blocks this potential check. But now we just have a perpet. So this whole mess of a line ends in a draw with best play, which is why Berg instead of taking the knight in this position, he takes the pawn on g6, targeting the rook and threatening rook h8 check. All right, now I'm throwing the ball back to you. How would you defend this? We could go into a lot of analysis. Every single move is crazy. So, yes, if you found, this is a great moment to pause the video, find the only tight rope of a line that black has to walk. If you found king f7, congrats. Because one guy in my stream actually found it, and I said he was wrong because, again, I was like, okay, you can just take the rook. But here it doesn't work. Because imagine if we take the rook and they take. Okay? This is actually better for black. Because it seems like we have two rooks. But with their bishops so nice, with these files getting opened, and the king actually quite protected by the bishops, and the queen, we don't have an attack, first of all, and black is actually better. Believe it or not, black is better. So we cannot take. King comes here in defense. Now, if we just give him a check, this just leads to repetition. Okay? If we take the knight, this just goes into what I say. This is roughly equal. And if you were thinking, like, if we don't take, if we first pin this guy, then trades are happening. This looks like, I mean, it looks like it should be still dangerous, but the thing is, you can't just go by appearances, right? We actually don't have anything. Everything is defended. The queen is defending the mate. If they trade off, we're just down material. So this is actually not, it doesn't work. Our attack has fizzled out, essentially. So king f7 was the only try. Now let's look at something even more spectacular. I just want to go down this hole because it's nice. Okay, so I'm sure nobody actually even considered this defense. Knight h7. But I'm going to give these lines because they're nice. Because it's like, okay, first, this check seems pretty lethal. Also, these sacks are coming. But you have to really calculate this out. Queen e6 check. Block. And now, how do you continue as white? Just to put on our thinking caps. Would you immediately take this knight? Would you do that? Well, let's take a look. What happens if you just take this knight immediately? Oh, shoot. You didn't forget about our old friend, the dark square diagonal, did you? You didn't forget about the nasty check coming, did you? Well, if you forgot, too bad, because now you just lost the game. Because now black is defending everything. Now it no longer works. They clear it the way, they clear the check. Now, let's say, how do we continue this? Now let's say, okay, so king is forced to move, so we take the rook. Now let's say this rook comes in with check. What's our prime defense here? Bishop h6. This is the beauty of this line because it just like, oh, I'm just so impressed. Like, these chess players are so cool. Like, not only did you calculate like the counterplay, like the defense of like, okay, maybe we're like defending everybody, but it's not just that. Not that I give you a check, but also because the bishop can swing back and defend on the h file. This is why this is now winning for black. If I just replay through this, right? It's like, wow, we did all that work to get here to attack you, but just one slip, one hurried move, right? One hurried move taking this will lead me to actually defend everybody. So that's why you kind of already saw the move. That's why here we do not rush with taking on h7. What do we have to prepare it with? How do we stop the bishop from giving us this check? That's right. f4 exclam. f4. So at first it's like kind of nonsensical. You're like, why f4? Because you need to stop the opponent's counterplay. Or if you had 5 moves ago, just brought your king to b1, then we wouldn't have had this problem. But we didn't. So f4, exclam of a move. It's kind of like the slow, quiet move, a quiet move in the midst of the storm. So f4. And now what can black do to defend? So you're pretty much lost, actually. From here, you're lost. Black needs to give back the material by taking here anyway. You just have to give up somebody here. Now we take. And now I just want to show some more fancy lines. We won't spend too much time here. But let's say bishop takes on g2, then we see some complications like this, which eventually leads to mate. Because this is a discovery, this will promote, and we will swap everybody off, and you cannot defend against all these mating threats. But if you do not take the bishop, if you do not take with on g2 with the bishop, let's say you actually, I just want to show this. Let's say you try to trade somebody off on d8. Oh, this is so hot. We have a friggin' rook sacrifice right here, threatening to take mate on h8. So he has to take. Now we come in on queen e8 chuck. Rook slides back. Do we see the finish? Oh, it's so nice. Knight e7 chuck. Are you getting mated? Tell me you can see the mate from here. What happens if queen doesn't take? What happens if king goes here? Can we see the mate? It's our old friend, the Anastasia's mate? Yeah. Our old friend. So queen is forced to give herself up here. So this is so nice. I just wanted to show off that line. And this is why this whole variation of knight h7 does not work, which I never even thought of, by the way. I did not even consider this as a defense. But it's kind of like, yeah, okay, you attack my knight. I try to plug in the hole by getting out of the way and possibly coming down, but it just doesn't work. So this doesn't work. This doesn't work. We already calculated these two options. We already kind of revealed that the right answer is king f7. So what does our friend Bareev play? He's under a lot of pressure this entire game. And that's why an attack works, even if objectively the engine is still spitting out 000. But psychologically, he's under so much pressure that eventually he cracks, which is what happens. He goes for knight e4. And this is like one of the last critical junctures of the game. I want you to think, how does white continue from here? What is white's conclusion? So we already know that the only move for black to survive was king f7, and he goes knight e4. So I'm already telling you this is the wrong move. Now as white, how are you going to finish the job? Okay, the first move is obvious enough. Let's give a chuck. Yes, we open up the H file. Let's give that chuck. All right, king comes down. What would you do here? Think about it. Think about it. What happens? Who thinks that we should come in here with the queen? Petting the knight, threatening a nice discovery, maybe even a double chuck, discovery chuck. That seems nice, right? Right? But did you calculate? For always, what did I warn you guys to calculate every single line? Oh, F. F. Did we forget about him again? Him again. Him yet again. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, who's attacking who? Oh shoot. Yeah, this doesn't look good. All because of one minor detail. So that's why here we cannot go queen h5 preparing the chuck. Initiative. Tempo. Everything has to come with a chuck here. Unless you're doing a quite slow move. So what is that? What's it going to be? So the slow move here doesn't work. We gotta chuck him. We gotta throw another piece into the fire. Get rid of him with chuck. Alright, opening up the line with chuck. Now he's already dead lost. Can we calculate the finish from here? Yes, baby. Now queen h5. We threw the knight into the fire to open up this line for the queen. Now it's all force from here. He has to go where? He has to go where? Pay attention to the board. The king is cut off. He can never cross this river. He can never go up. We are cornering him slowly. He has to go g6. Now how do we win the queen from here? Rook h7 chuck. What happens if king moves? Uh-oh. You're getting mated. So queen has to give herself up with chuck. Now it's GG. If we look at this position, this is we have to calculate like 10 moves in advance. Or even 5 moves in advance. But if you look at this, it looks materially okay for black. Does it not? Black has how many pieces for the queen? Normally, in a normal situation, if you just do some simple math, you count the pieces. Okay, a rook is 5 points, a knight is 3 points. You do the math. Black is actually materially better. because they have a lot of effing pieces. However, who has a sexy D file? Who has an attack going on the king? Who has initiative? Who has the king surrounded? And who is not getting out of here alive? That's right. Black has the pieces, but black has a naked king. And these pieces are not coordinated well enough to defend against the attack. So we follow up with very standard moves. Queen h6. King forced to move. We keep chasing with, look at this nice rook cutting him off. So now rook is forced to defend. Now it's already very passive. Now, this is the last critical moment in the game that you really have to think. And I want you to think, how am I going to finish a job? How am I going to convert this? Because a game is not won until it's won. So, if you considered, let's just take this pawn, right? Let's take this pawn, clear out the G file. Because if you just look at this, what is our trump card here? Our trump card is that first, yeah, this king is surrounded. We can kind of check him and escort this G pawn up to promotion. We want to do that. But what happens if we rush the job? Queen takes e6, knight takes, hitting the queen. If we just play this through, it's not so clear anymore, is it? It's not so clear. This is actually roughly equal again. Who would have thought? Isn't that disgusting? Not this, because you lose a rook, but here. This is roughly okay for them. Who would have thought? So instead of rushing with take, we first have a sly little move here. Did we forget our old friend c6? Big round of applause to you if you found this. What does this do? We're attracting the bishop. I love the tactics in this game. We attract the bishop onto the c6 square. So now when we take, we have a little fork going. Yeah? This is much better than we just came here alone. Now we have a little fork going. Now he has to go back. Now I want you to find the last little trick in the position. What are two candidate moves? I spy two different options here, and I want you to pick the best one. So one, let's just take the pawn up the board. G6, kick the rook, escort the pawn. Is that nice? G6, that looks good. Who's itching for a little chuck? How about this? Does this look like a simple conversion? Simply, queen d7, chuck. King moves. Let's pick up a bishop. After the bishop is gone, we just simply pick off all the pieces. That looks like an even safer way. Plus, it comes with chuck. It's even more forcing. Who's with me into going for d7? Queen d7, chuck, though. Right? Chuck's first. Chuck's captures done threats. Chuck first, right? Sorry if you fell for my trick again. Queen d7, chuck. Do we calculate this through? Let's pick up a free bishop. Oh, did we forget our old friend? Did we say hi to our old friend again? We said hello to our old friend once again. Oh my god, what a way to end this game. And I'm very sad to tell you this is actually how the game finished. It's like one of the worst reverse swindles in chess history. It's like they're not noobs, okay? This would happen in one of my games, but not their games. I mean, this would just be really, really sad if this had happened. This would be a great tragedy. Imagine doing all that. You think you're winning, you're feeling cocky, you want to celebrate, just to let it go in the last moment. Let it slip. What a tragedy. That's why here in this critical juncture, you still calculate what is the best move. Just g6, baby. Just g6. Now we're just going to play this through. He has to defend because if king comes here, we can pick up this rook with chuck. And then this will pick up the rook. So knight has to block. But it can't really do the job. If knight comes here, it doesn't work. We just take off everybody and promote. If rook blocks, which is what happened in the game, what's the best finish? So obviously you can just take and that works. But there's an even sexier move. G7, baby. We are going to promote. And you can't stop me. And that was it. That was GG right here. Very nice game that we analyzed to death. But I think some key takeaways here is to always be alert. And what is the best engine move is not actually the best move practically, because just bishop g6 was such a grand, spectacular move. mostly just because of the surprise factor. So here, objectively, not the best move, but the most maximum pressure on the board and psychologically for the opponent to deal with. This is one great critical moment. And another takeaway is if Berg had just gone king b1, then he would have cut off a lot of work later on the road when he had to keep calculating the potential threat of the bishop or queen checking and their counterplay on this vulnerable diagonal. And that's why we take care of our own king first, often before going in. But I'm sure he's also fine with it, because if he calculated it, he was like, okay, this is okay for me. Another thing I like is just the urgency of the attack. This last moment here, there's a lot of moves that seem obvious that I think an amateur would play because it seems obvious, but he doesn't play because it's not actually the best continuation. And what I mean by that is a lot of these lines, for example, the queen h5 check move, like here. It seems obvious, but this is not the best continuation because it does not actually lead to mate. We can really calculate this through. If we go here and I take with a rook, which I didn't show you guys, not to take with a rook, but they always have some kind of counterplay. Okay, queen e8. And now if we take with check, this is actually okay. They covered all their bases and they can just move out of the way. This is all okay for black. So not to rush it, but to have the patience, or to not go for the obvious move, but to go here. And so just a lot of these lines were really, really nice for me to go through. A lot of nice sacrifices. Yeah, just a nice attack in general. It's not a great, super well-known game. So hope you guys enjoy that. And the first time I ever tried doing this kind of video. So I learned a lot too, because I spent so long going down these different, like, very minute threads or lines. And eventually I had to zoom out, see the big picture, and see, like, okay, what are the main lines that I want to focus on? So do tell me your thoughts and feedback as well. All right, thanks. Bye.